presentation on Chislehurst Caves. We initially chose Chislehurst Caves as we were considering looking at rocks and soils. However, on closer look at the national curriculum, we decided that actually we felt that Chislehurst Caves would better suit looking at the light and dark, and it was an ideal opportunity for us to do this. Chislehurst Caves is local to us here, local to us all at home, and hence we visited Chislehurst Caves.
Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the first lesson, which is before the actual trip. So we'll introduce the topic of light and dark, and we'll get the children to talk in talk partners or small groups about how they feel about the dark and all the experiences they have had so far of dark. And then we're going to try and make the classroom dark, so children will volunteer ideas like close the blinds, turn off the light switch, the computer monitor, and we'll discuss whether we've reached dark, and we expect a lot of children to say yes, it's dark now, but it is darker, but they haven't experienced absolute dark. So also we'll be challenging some of the misconceptions. We're going to find some light sources in the classroom, and we imagine they'll come up with some things that aren't light sources, like really shiny reflective surfaces. So we'll ask, we will be able to see these if it was absolutely dark, just to start that thought process and sort of make the way, sort of set up the thinking for when we visit the cave.
We then thought it was, we discussed why we would want to go to the caves. We discussed that between us, and then we thought it was really important to have that conversation with the children. So here we've got a teacher having that conversation with the children, asking, why do we need to go outside the classroom? For this in particular, it's just an amazing opportunity for them to get a real experience. And we've got a nice quote here, that real experience and how it impacts on their learning, and it really encourages their motivation to answer their own questions and really think about it. And yeah, we just thought it was really nice to involve the children in that discussion, not just say we're going to the caves, but really ask them why they think we need to go.
Okay, then moving on, to think about where you can experience the absolute darkness to overcome that misconception. And as teachers, you know, you'd have this discussion, where might we be able to experience this? And we thought of the Chislehurst Caves. You can experience the absolute darkness, because children are able to recognise what is light, what is dark, and what actually is absolute darkness. Also able to relate their experiences from that first lesson into the actual trip to the caves, and kind of answer some of their own questions when they're there. Okay, so once we decided on Chislehurst Caves, then we're going to think about the other positive reasons for going. You've got things such as cost. It's a nice, cheap place to go. Travel, there's easy parking for buses. It's also not affected by weather, which obviously some school trips are. It's inside, it's not affected by weather. You can also, as a teacher, do pre-visits, and yeah, so there's just some of the positive reasons for going to Chislehurst Caves, and we've got some other ones that we've just highlighted on this leaflet, which you can actually find on the website.
We also did think about some of the limitations of going to Chislehurst Caves, and primarily, obviously, the sun itself is a light source, and when you're down in the caves, then there is an absence of sunlight, so we would need to address that with children. Some children might be scared of the caves, scared of the dark, and then there are also some light sources that we may well have wanted to take to the caves, which would need a power supply, and obviously there would be a lack of power supply.
We wanted to ensure that the trip was accessible for all the children in our class. On School Experience, we've all had experience of working with children with autism, so we focused on thinking about how we'd make the trip accessible for an autistic child. We did some research, and we discovered that social stories were a really effective way of getting autistic children ready and prepared to change their location and change the structure of their day. So here we have the TA reading a social story to John.
We don't want to just think about autistic children or children with SEN, we want to think about the class as a whole and who else might be just frightened of going to the caves itself. So not just because it's a different experience, but because it's dark and, you know, they might be scared of the dark, for example. So we thought about reading the book to the entire class, A Social Story, so that the whole class could really benefit from it. I've been looking at child with Down syndrome, and social stories can help them because they know the routine of where they're going and what they're going to do on the day and what they're going to see. And also, as looking at a child with dyslexia, and it can really help them learn the vocabulary that we're using down in the cave, so it's not new to them. They won't misunderstand what the cave leader might be saying. So you can introduce things to them that they might not know beforehand, so they know what they're doing down in the caves.
So when we thought about taking children to the caves, we thought of the science scheme of work for light and dark over a period of 3 lessons, and the content for the actual trip is provided by the caves, and we had that discussion with the tour guide. But we wanted to ensure ensure that we got what we wanted for the children out of it, and the children were able to answer some of their own questions. So you can see we thought about differently with SEN and EAL children, how we would ensure that they got what they needed out of the trip. And also we decided that it would be a really nice idea for the children to, once they'd identified some light sources, them to have a range that they could choose from, make a little light bag between their group and take it down there so they could try them out in the darkness and see what worked. They address some of those misconceptions, and we found some really nice resources to support and inform our understanding about the importance of resources, and as Becky said, the importance of the vocabulary, which should be outlined by yourself in the lesson plan so that the tour guide can use that as well as his own.
At the beginning of the tour, the children will have a safety briefing, so they'll understand what can and can't be done whilst they're in the caves. And this is actually online. The caves provide it themselves, but we actually have a look at it and we annotated it as well.
Yeah, and we thought it's really brilliant. It's really good that you can access it online, because you can, before you go, you can really think about the individual children in your class. And we did that, and we thought about their hypothetical children or the children we'd experienced in our school experience, and made some nice links as to how we would make sure that everything was accessible to them in the trip. We just picked out some specific ones there and did a bit of annotating.
Alright, so on the visit, so when we arrive in the building, it's really bright, and then as you get to the sort of cave area and you go lower and lower, to begin with, it's actually really well lit. There are electric lights on the ceiling, and as the tour goes on, they become less and less, and then there's a point where the tour guide says this is the last electric light, now we're just going to be using our lamps, and sort of make sure that the children are very aware at each level when we're going to get dark and dark, so it's a nice gradual process. And then he makes it very clear that this is the point that we're going to make it dark, just get ready. So that, yeah, the children aren't scared, and it's a gradual progression. It's not you suddenly in dark, and it's not dark the whole time. And this was obviously supported by our first lesson where we discussed feelings about being in the dark, and supported by the social stories where we explained that it won't be dark the whole time. There'll be a point and it'll be very clear, and the adult will say.
Okay, as Ingrid said, they are gradually eased into that darkness, but the ultimate thing is that they do experience what the absolute darkness is, and they will also be able to test their different light sources and decide whether actually they are light sources or whether they're not, to overcome those misconceptions. And also, you know, it won't just be lights off, that's it. They will have, you know, on and off, so hopefully to ease the process of perhaps being a bit scared.
We then, here's our bibliography, but just to quickly mention, after visiting the trip, go back to school, the third lesson, we decided that it would be nice to have an opportunity for them to discover what they found out of the cave, but also to have maybe a cross-curricular afternoon. We decided that DT might be a good approach, and then get the children to actually try and build their own houses that were in complete darkness, so that they could actually do some hands-on work.
Exploring those different materials which can simulate darkness.